Howdy everyone, welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's look into the Brisbane Broncos fixture for 2024. Their pre-season looks like this. 2 games. Week number 1, they travelled to Mackay to take on the North Queensland Cowboys. There may be a Reece Walsh that plays in the game. There might be a Tony Staggs that plays in this game because week number 2, the Broncos travel to 4 Pines Park in Sydney. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. The Broncos are going to be travelling to Las Vegas on the 22nd of February. So the Broncos are going to be by and large a Queensland Cup team, maybe less than, and so too will the Manly Sea Eagles, I imagine, in this game. So I think maybe their bigger stars, maybe not the biggest like Adam Reynolds, will participate in that round number 1 game against the Cowboys in the preseason challenge. And this would be the Broncos' first trip to 4 Pines Park in a long time. I'm thinking close to 10 years, but it's not regular season footy. But again, it's still a trip to 4 Pines Park for Brisbane. Broncos' first section for 2024 looks like this. They are the main event, or the second game, of the 2 United States contests taking place at Allegiant Stadium Sunday the 3rd of March. They are technically the away side, Roosters versus Broncos in Las Vegas. Their next contest obviously is 2 weeks later. They play on the Thursday night at home against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who they themselves are a Las Vegas team. Round number 3, grand final rematch, Thursday night footy at Penrith, Panthers versus Broncos. Round number 4, Good Friday night football. The Queensland Derby, the big one. Broncos versus North Queensland Cowboys, Friday night footy. So excited for that one. And then they round out their first 5 weeks with a trip down to Amy Park against the Melbourne Storm on Thursday night footy. That is the toughest start to anybody's year. Now, I don't think it's going to come close. I've still got half the competition to look at. That is the toughest start to the year for anybody. But in an aspect, they are projected to be top 2 again, top 4 at the very least, and contend for a premiership by the end of the season. So maybe it's just going to be really easy for the Broncos. But no, that's wow, that is as tough as it gets. Section 2 for 2024 starts with back-to-back home games for the Brisbane Broncos. The first one, though, is the battle for Brisbane. Broncos versus Dolphins on Friday night footy. Then they have 8 days until their next game in round number 7, where they host the Canberra Raiders. In round number 8, 7 days later, they have a game against the Tigers out at Campbelltown. And I think off the top of the dome, it's their first trip to Campbelltown Stadium in about 5 or 6 years. In round number 9, they're back home. They take on the Roosters. So that's the double done for the Eastern Suburbs and the Brisbane Broncos. That's on Friday night footy. And then 7 days later, they travel down to CommBank Stadium to take on the Parramatta Eels. It's a little bit kinder. There is a couple of trips down to Sydney, but the strength of opposition is lesser, with all due respect, but it is. So Raiders, Tigers, you would imagine they could deal with it. Eels, 50-50 chance down there at CommBank for sure. But easily their 2 toughest games are against the Dolphins and the Roosters in this 5-week stretch. To start section number 3 for their year, possibly for the last time, Manly will take a home game to Suncorp Stadium, where they will host the Brisbane Broncos as a part of Magic Round. And it may just be the last time we see Sea Eagles versus Broncos at Magic Round as well. But that's how it starts for the Brisbane Broncos for Section 3, a away game at Suncorp Stadium. They're then still at Suncorp 1 week later on the Sunday, so they have a good 9-10 day rest until they take on the Gold Coast Titans. And the Titans at Suncorp, over the past 4 or 5 years, man, those games have been insane, absolutely insane, including 1 or 2 upsets over the years as well. Then they finally get their first bye for 2024 in round 13. They then get back on track in round 14 with another Suncorp Stadium game. So that is 3 straight games at Suncorp. Tough to be a Bronco. And they're taking on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks on Saturday night footy. And then round 15 to round out phase number 3 is a trip down to Accor Stadium where they take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs on Friday night. In terms of strength of opposition, there are a couple of winnable games for sure, but that's 3 games at Suncorp Stadium in Phase 3 for the Broncos. That's pretty good going. Phase 4 starts with a bye in round 16, followed by a trip to Mount Smart Stadium to take on the New Zealand Warriors Saturday 3 p.m. here in Australia, approximately 5:30 over there in Auckland. So that is technically back-to-back away games for the Broncos, but they get their back-to-back home games now, because in round 18 on Thursday night footy, so this is a short-ish turnaround for the Broncos, playing in New Zealand on the Saturday. They're then backing up to take on the Penrith Panthers on Friday night football in the second part of their grand final rematch series in 2024. Then in round 19, they take on the St. George Illawarra Dragons, which I think off the top of my head is State of Origin affected. And then in round number 20, they travel down to Newcastle, take on the Knights on Saturday twilight. As so far as strength of opposition goes, that is a little bit tougher than the previous one, in my opinion. Warriors away, Panthers at home, Knights away, that could be anything. And then the Dragons, you would suggest, could actually be tough as well, just because of Origin affected. So the likes of a Reece Walsh and a Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan, potentially Katoni Staggs may not participate for the Broncos. On the other side of that, Ben Hunt may not be playing for the Dragons as well that day. But yeah, that's maybe a sneaky upset loss to the Broncos is floating around in there somewhere. But that's how phase number 4 looks for the Brisbane Broncos. Brisbane Broncos' run to the finals for 2024 looks like this. It starts in round number 21, and they do have a bye thrown in there in between it all. In round 21, they host the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs on Saturday, 3 p.m. 7 days later, in the same time slot, they zip down the M1 to take on the Gold Coast Titans at Cbus Super Stadium. 7 days later, Saturday twilight fixture, they then hop on a plane to North Queensland to take on the Cowboys at QCB Stadium, Saturday 5:30 p.m. They then have their third and final bye in round number 24. And then their last 3 games for the regular season all takes place at Suncorp Stadium. That's a lucky little thing they got there. They host the Parramatta Eels in round number 25 on Friday night footy. They are then the away team to the Dolphins at Suncorp Stadium in round 26, Saturday 5:30 p.m. kickoff. And then it is an exact replica of the game that happened in 2023. Round 27, the way they finished their year, is a home game against the Melbourne Storm. And by and large, it will be an exact carbon copy of what happened in the final round of the regular season for 2023. The start to the year, maybe the first 7 weeks of the season, 6 weeks, I should say, it is the toughest start. It is absolutely the toughest start to any team. The impact will eventually be softened with a handful of phases where they have 3, maybe even 4 weeks where they do not have to leave Brisbane. They have 3 straight Suncorp Stadium games in a row twice, and there's also a piece there where there's a bye in amongst that. So there is going to be a straight month where the Broncos do not have to leave Brisbane, but then again, you can forgive it for such an intense start to 2024. Look, ladder predictions are not too far away. Broncos, I feel, are going to be really deep. I'd be a dickhead if I said, oh, maybe they won't. No, they're going to be in massive contention. but I think it could be a bit of a tougher year for them, but not by much. Like, if they're not finishing second, they're finishing third this year, you know? What a drop-off. Anyway, guys, that's their fixture. Thank you very much for your continuous support, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.